your retirement with Northwestern Ohio's resource for a common sense approach to planning for your financial investment and retirement future. He is president and founder of McIntire Retirement Services, serving those proactive planners, savers, and investors across Northwestern Ohio. Chris McIntire here with us, president, founder of McIntire Retirement Services. We always appreciate your time, Chris. Today, going to be talking about some critical planning mistakes that we want to all avoid if possible.
Yeah, no question about it. There's always two sides to everything that we do. Every decision, is it right, wrong? What are some of the ramifications if we do the wrong method there, if you will? And, I don't mean to say everything is either right or wrong. It isn't. And, we have folks who ask us, well, when's the best time for me to take Social Security? And, it's like, well, there isn't really any best time because we don't know how long you're going to be alive, So, do you start earlier? Do you start later? Depending on, a number of different factors in there. So, in some cases, just starting early just because your golf buddies did in your particular case may be a mistake.
And Chris, diving into that, just because you brought it up, and I know we'll touch on it a little later in the program, but with Social Security, that is a very individual decision, as you just mentioned, and it is something that the online tools and calculators, they only give you part of the picture because they only look at the Social Security. For most people, you've got to incorporate that decision with kind of the rest of your finances, your accounts, your investments, and your retirement withdrawals for income.
Yeah. Great example is, okay, I did my software piece and it said the ideal age for my wife and I, or even if it's somebody that's a single, widowed, divorced, to take Social Security was age 70. It's like, all right, but how much money did you pull out of your 401k and your IRA to live on until you got to age 70? And instead of reinvesting in dividends and whatnot, so, not saying that that's a wrong answer, just, there's got to be some critical thought in here, other than just, well, this is how much I would get out of Social Security if I lived to be 95, all right. Yeah. But if you take it at 65 instead of 70 and you were getting, $2,000 a month, for example, at 65, versus maybe $2,800, at age 70, and probably be a little bit more than that, maybe 3,000 with all the delayed retirement credits. But how long do you anticipate living? And again, how much are you pulling out of your 401k? So for an example here, I don't mean to dwell on all of this, but if we have a husband-wife combination that are both the same age, well, we might have one start at 62, assuming that they're retired, at 62 or working part-time, and then maybe have one wait until 65 or even later, because that leaves a bigger survivor benefit as well.
Bottom line, because we don't know how long we're going to be around, Chris, we never know what the best way to do it is going to be. But you play the odds, you play the statistics, you play the actuarial tables and the likelihood of longevity, and you can find an optimal way to incorporate it into people's plans and scenarios. And ladies and gentlemen, this is just one of the things that Chris McIntire and the team from McIntire Retirement Services strive to do and assist clients with each and every day. So if you need some help, just even only looking at that Social Security decision, it is certainly worth the time, because the difference in a suboptimal versus an optimized retirement strategy with Social Security can be several hundreds of thousands of dollars. That either comes from Social Security, comes from your personal investments, or isn't there at all. So give McIntire Retirement Services a call if you'd like to have that conversation, run those numbers, crunch the scenarios. 800-868-1194. That's 800-868-1194. 800-868-1194. Now, Chris, oftentimes on this program, we're talking about strategies that we should do, to-dos, things that can help to be more efficient and effective or optimize our outcome. Today's program, a little bit different. On the other side of that coin, so to speak, we're going to be talking about things not to do, but in that conversation, therefore, we'll talk about things that people should try to strive to both avoid and then accomplish. And number one on your list, this report you have of the 5 planning mistakes to avoid, is not having a grip on your retirement. So this does go back to that Social Security conversation we were just having, but the grip is a handle. You want to have a handle on your retirement, but also an acronym here, guaranteed retirement income plan, of which Social Security is obviously a big component of.
Yeah, it certainly is. It's like 30 to 40% of the average retiree's income in their retirement. So, trying to optimize and find the best timing on when to draw that benefit is one of the most critical decisions. It's as important as the pension selection that someone would take on what is the survivor benefit you would leave for a spouse, for the married couples out there. On a pension payment, do you take less money but leave 100%, or do you get more money and leave 50%? Some of these are very critical decisions, and you want to make the best one that you possibly can.
And if you've got that pension, lucky to have that. Another big important piece, Chris, a lot of times we're tempted to take the highest amount of income that's shown, or take the money and run, maybe kind of our thought process on that. You really need to sit down and crunch those numbers as well, and compare the scenarios side by side.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. And again, then you make the best decision you possibly can for your specific case. And, you can get some interference from your friends and, even other family members, but, how relatable is your circumstances to theirs? Maybe they both have pensions and, they can do things different, or they didn't have any pensions, so they took it at 62, and so sitting down with somebody that, that is used to doing this is where that comes is very critically important, because that is not the job of the personnel at the Social Security Administration to kind of do that analysis for you. They're there to take your application. So, you want to do your homework well ahead of that.
They do not know the rest of your financial situation and accounts and investments, so they do not take on the position nor the liability of providing that advice, Chris, which is why it is so important to go and talk with someone like yourself, like you there at McIntire Retirement Services, to get everything on the table and incorporate Social Security into that planning process. Chris, you mentioned 30 to 40%. We certainly don't want Social Security to be 100% of everything we count and rely on in retirement. If we can live within it, fantastic, but it should not be the only asset that we have. We need to do a better job in saving and investing to complement the GRIP, the guaranteed retirement income plan that we have.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, there are, many folks over the age of 65 in the United States, we're talking that Social Security is their only source of any sort of income that comes in. It's like 25% of the people over 65 only have Social Security to rely on. And again, a lot of that's probably in, a lot of the lower economic areas of the country and, in areas of the South and whatnot. So, it's a critically important component for American society, I guess would be my point, to keep it funded.
Well, Chris, to complement the Social Security and or pension, if we're lucky enough to have one, we do have the personal savings, right? This generation has amassed more personal wealth than any generation ever before. Thank you in large part to the 401k, the inception of those workplace benefits and savings and investment plans that have done a lot of that for us automatically, thankfully. However, the status quo with those assets is I've got this much money and therefore I can retire. But for many people, what that is going to do over the next 10, 15, 30 years or more throughout retirement is sort of based on the ebbs and flows of an unpredictable market and speculation and projections. We do want to and have the ability to add to that guaranteed retirement income plan in many instances, correct?
Yeah, no question about that. You can, spin off part of your 401k or IRA assets and create some additional income streams if you want to. You can invest some of your portfolio itself into dividend paying stocks, higher interest rate paying bonds and whatnot. So there are a lot of different types of investments and insurance pieces that you can utilize to maximize income, where a lot of times people will look at the stock market and think of growth versus thinking of income. We use a ton of dividend paying stocks, Verizon, General Mills, American General, good companies like that have a long track record of increasing their dividend payout, kind of like a rising rate CD almost, if you will. Obviously it's a stock, so it can go up and down in value, but as long as that stock pays out the dividend, do we really care what the value of it is? Eventually, the idea is over time, you make money on it, you have growth on it, but if you're relying on the income, that's why you choose companies like that. Not all companies pay dividends. Let's be honest. Some companies are, set up for growth. You don't buy Amazon because they pay a 6% dividend. You buy Amazon because they show up at your neighbor's house and your house every day, and you think their stock's going to continue to go up.
Yeah. And by the way, it has done so phenomenally well, but also, Chris, not always predictably so, as is with the entire stock market. Some of those high growth stocks had a pretty terrible year back 2022, and a lot of losses were posted that year. I guess the key there, and what savers and investors need to understand, is that is the unpredictable part of your portfolio, but it's also something that where there are down times in the market in a particular stock, oftentimes the very next day in the market in general, the next year thereafter, things do come back and rebound. You've got to stick with it long-term, long haul, not judge day to day or in a single period of time.
Yeah, you're correct there, Peter. And it's very often, like you just said, the worst performing sector of the economy in one year is very often, the best performing sector the next year.
Yep. And Chris, we also want to only take risk where necessary. So exposing our money, our life savings, to those ups and downs and fluctuations in the volatility of the market, that is something that we've been taught to do, that risk does come with the potential for reward, but it is only potential. So planning mistake number 2 on your report here is taking inappropriate risks. How do you help your clients and savers and investors in particular determine what an appropriate level of risk is and balance that versus an inappropriate level?
Sure. And we kind of have a generic risk profile questionnaire that we're required to obtain on all of our clients. So we have suitability guidelines that we have to adhere to so that we don't take inappropriate risks with clients there. An inappropriate risk, look, we're all humans. We're all greedy. When the market's on fire, everybody wants to be in stocks. It can turn quickly, and then, you can lose as much as you get. The fear of missing out, FOMO, for example, that's just that's human nature, if you will. Why do you think Las Vegas has beautiful hotels? Because people throw thousands of dollars away thinking they're going to win, and they don't, by and large. And I'm going to take the other side of that as well, Peter, is, not taking enough risk in some cases. I deal with some folks who are, so incredibly conservative that, and they have enough money that they could take some longer term, I'll say risk, for example, maybe add to their stock positions to get higher rates over time, because, now, a lot of folks are like, look, after 2022, I'll just throw me into a money market account or CDs and I'll be happy. And then you miss all of the bounce that has happened into 2023, for example, with certain sides of the economic ladder here, the growth sector, technology companies, by and large have really led the way here. And, if you bailed out at the bottom, or, August, September, and October of this year, 3 terrible months for stock and bond investors. And he said, hey, I just want to get out, here, and do something different. It's like, all right. And look what happened in the first 3 weeks of November, and that's the thing. That's why you build portfolios around appropriate risk, and why that is so critical, so that, the client or the investor doesn't bail out at the bottom and doesn't want to take too much risk at the top. Right.
And our age and our timeline play into that determination as well.
Yeah, it certainly does, and the analogy there is, look, the older you get, the less risk that you're, supposed to be taking, rule of thumb. And I'll make a counterpoint to that, um, is, if you've done all of your spending and whatnot, and you've got a fair amount of money sitting in stocks and bonds and whatnot, and your goal is to pass that on to your children, and you most likely won't need that, look, there's probably still some appropriate risk to be able to be taken with that. That was my great uncle Howard's. He's like, well, I'm not going to use this money. I'm going to pass it on. I want to make as much as I can for my family. So, there is that part of the equation as well. But if you're somebody who's really relying on it for income, then obviously, you want to try to avoid those big shocks that you can have. And, look, a lot of people had that in 2022, or just coming into retirement, and whammy, the market fell so fast. And, some of that recovery takes a little bit of time, especially when you're pulling funds out of the portfolio.
Again, we are talking with Chris McIntire, president and founder of McIntire Retirement Services. Offices conveniently located across Northwestern Ohio. You can visit in person, and he does offer the opportunity. The true value of this program, ladies and gentlemen, not just the education, but the access to an experienced, qualified professional, and the ability to set up a complimentary review and retirement planning strategy session. All you need to do to take advantage, pick up the phone and give a call, 800-868-1194. That's 800-868-1194, 800-868-1194, the number to call. And you can have a conversation with Chris, ask whatever questions that you have over the phone, set up a time either in person at one of the 4 office locations, or through the ease and convenience of technology, always available for Zoom conversations as well, however it makes sense to you. But you get that started with a phone call, 800-868-1194, or skip the phone call, and always available online, McIntireRetirementServices.com, McIntireRetirementServices.com. Chris, as we were talking about that number one not having the grip, and you mentioned to supplement the guarantees, dividend stocks can play a valuable role. Another asset class that people look to for income has always been bonds, bond funds, those fixed income kind of instruments, which haven't fared very well here, but could be an opportunistic position looking at our current environment, right?
Yeah, Peter, I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah, they certainly could, because, now we're going into 2024. Okay? It appears that the interest rate cycle is, if it hasn't peaked out, it's incredibly close to it. In fact, many of the bigger investment banks like JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, all those are predicting some pace of interest rate cuts. Now, they might disagree on how fast and how many, but they're all predicting that we'll get some interest rate cuts, because, recently you had Target and Walmart who beat their earnings expectations, but are forecasting lower growth into 2024. Okay. So, that means people aren't spending as much as at a very popular couple of stores that, basically we all need to go in to get something, or some version of a Walmart or a Target, wherever you live there. We have Kroger and Meyer and some of these stores around here that we can utilize. For those of you in the South, you're lucky enough to have a Publix. I love Publix grocery stores, and privately held company, as a matter of fact. But again, if they're predicting lower growth there, what does that mean for the interest rate environment? Okay, probably means there's a better chance of prices being cut, which would do good for the value of bonds that are already in circulation. When interest rates drop, the value of bonds in circulation are going to increase. And we've seen some of that already here in the month of, the later part of this year, the month of November. That's where all the talk was. And you're seeing a rebound in U.S. government bonds, which pay the least amount of interest, which have the most interest rate sensitivity to them. So, those are beginning to climb as well. And, the one thing that's nice about that is the folks that are listening to this radio show, okay, by and large, probably have a more conservative mindset than a 40-year-old who can risk it all right now. And, and they've been hit pretty hard with, a disappointing bond market for the last 3 years. Okay. And again, if you bail out here right now, you might miss some of that recovery. And, personally, this week bought some bonds myself. I took money from a money market account earning 5% and went into some bonds.
Yeah. Again, not a recommendation, simply
No.
information for consideration, but something that a lot of folks are talking about paying attention to. And everything being cyclical, it seems like we are poised for a potential rebound in that bond market, which would be to the favor of the more traditionally conservative investor, right, Chris?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, that certainly no investment recommendation, but I'm a stock guy, so I'm either in cash or money in stock. I'm not necessarily a bond guy. I don't need the money right now. I want the growth. And but boy, there's certainly some opportunity after 3 disappointing years in bond market and bond mutual fund or bond ETF performance, where it may be worthy a consideration for some of the folks out there to, check your allocations and make sure that they're appropriate for where you think opportunities may come going forward. Because if they're forecasting lower growth, right, that probably wouldn't be big on on the consumer discretionary side of the stock market, right? You don't need a $6 latte, but you do need something from Johnson and Johnson to wash your clothes, right?
Yep, indeed.
Or whoever it is, whoever makes laundry detergent. I don't know if that's Johnson Johnson or not.
I think that's one of them. Yeah, absolutely. Maybe P&G. Who knows?
Procter and Gamble. Yeah.
Yeah. We are talking with Chris McIntire, and we are reviewing this report, ladies and gentlemen, of 5 planning mistakes to avoid. Now, if you would like to get your hands on this resource or any of the others that we have talked about over the course of this program, or review previous episodes on specific topics, those resources are always available online. McIntireRetirementServices.com, McIntireRetirementServices.com. And again, the true value of the program, you've got access to Chris personally. Give him a call. If you've got questions, concerns, you would like that complimentary review, 800-868-1194. That's 800-868-1194, 800-868-1194. Chris, number 3 on this list, a gross planning mistake. Unfortunately, a lot of us look at that retirement savings and think that all of that is ours to keep. We don't get to spend gross numbers. We've got to pay the taxes in the middle. It's the net numbers that we need to plan around.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And many folks that are listening to the show today, probably are not, nearly as familiar with their effective tax rate on every dollar that they have coming in. If you're working, especially there, they probably don't know, because, that's coming out of their paycheck, right? Don't pay any attention to that as long as they don't owe any money. In retirement, when you start drawing money out of your IRA account, your Social Security, if you're lucky enough to have a pension that comes in, right? That takes some calculation. How much is enough versus how much is too much. Some folks like to get a big fat return, so they overdo it, and kind of like a forced savings vehicle. And I'm not going to argue the merits of that. My dad likes doing that as well. But from if you're missing the boat on the tax side, you're probably missing the tax planning aspect as well, on the ability to do some Roth conversions, that type of thing, or even selling stocks that have a significant capital gains where you might not have to pay that tax, because that's an income tax question. Your income tax bracket determines your capital gains tax bracket.
Well, again, you've got to know and understand all of these things in order to make effective, efficient financial decisions. And maybe it is not your bailiwick. Maybe it is not your full-time focus, as it is with Chris McIntire. But that's the value of having an experienced, qualified, competent professional in your corner, on your team, ladies and gentlemen, working for you on your behalf, taking some of that responsibility off of your shoulders so that you can do what you need to do, live your life, work your profession, or enjoy your retirement, wherever you are at in your phase and progress. Chris McIntire can help and assist. Pick up the phone, give a call, 800-868-1194, 800-868-1194. Chris, another big one, you talk about it a lot, and I think a lot of this is from the heart because you have seen it personally and dealt with it hands-on with your family, with your clients. But the mistake is not caring enough to plan for long-term care, right? This is something that we all need to do. We need to take it seriously. We need to have some kind of plan in place for those healthcare expenses that we may encounter.
Yeah, buddy. And, in this one, it does hit home, no question about it. I got a 90-year-old dad, an 86-year-old mom, a 95-year-old father-in-law, and a dear friend of ours that we also helped to take care of who, did some long-term care planning and, that certainly has helped financially. It's an area where I wish I could convey this message better to our clients that, look, you need to plan for this. This is going to happen to some of you. For some of you, it might be for a week, 2 weeks, 2 years, 4 years, 5 years, and it could result in you spending your entire life savings on something that was incredibly totally preventable. And so that's my heartfelt message there is, look at the options that are out there. There are many anymore. We're not talking about your 20-year ago long-term care insurance policy that is increased in value, the ones your parents had, that for those of you that are listening to the show and they cursed it. There's so many different ways that they do that now. I'll share with you what I have. If we sit down and talk with one another, I'll show you what I have. If I didn't think it was important, why would I have it?
Yep. And ladies and gentlemen, I mean, the costs for care, really, when you look at it, Chris, there are some online tools and calculators that give you current costs and can estimate it out into the future. It is one of the expenses that is increasing well beyond even what the inflation level is on all other costs and expenses that we have.
Yeah, no question about it. I mean, we're talking, up to $10,000 a month, for some time in a nursing home. And even if you're in your own home, your community care, if you're private paying nurses and whatnot to come in, at 24/7 a day, it can be $16,000 to $20,000 a month. I know that firsthand. And, whose money do you want to use to do that? You want to take some of your pennies and buy some dollars and let an insurance company deal with that, or take a calculated risk.
Well, again, we're covering 5 planning mistakes to avoid: not having that grip on your retirement, really understanding your guaranteed retirement income plan, making the most of Social Security pensions, taking inappropriate risks, especially in retirement. If you are there, if you've reached the finish line and have enough, take measured risks and only where necessary. The gross planning mistake: not including and incorporating taxes into your retirement plan and projections, not understanding what that bill is going to be. Chris McIntire can help you quantify that, by the way, and there are strategies to control and minimize that, sometimes substantially. That alone probably worth getting in touch with Chris McIntire over, but making sure that you have addressed those potential long-term care costs, have a plan for that. And then, Chris, finally, number 5, rounding home here, not using Social Security to provide effective financial security. A lot of people look at Social Security, I want to get it when the getting's good, get it as soon as possible. But ideally, we want to use Social Security to try to preserve and protect our standard of living and our assets, our personal net worth, as long as possible.
Yeah, for those listening today, most of you can take Social Security at 62 and you can wait all the way up until age 70. So all right, you got 8 years in there. Which one of those years is the right one for you? 62 is going to get you the least amount. 70 is going to get you the greatest amount. And obviously, Social Security, once you pass away, those payments stop. Now, they may assist your spouse, though. Your spouse may get a boost and be able to maintain a standard of living, which makes the filing strategy or the timing of the filing all that more omnipotent. And choosing the selection that best fits your financial needs. Again, none of us know how long we're going to be alive, so you have to make the best decision that works in your case. And for married couples, a lot of times that's going to involve, look, if I pass away, what's going to go to my spouse? I don't want to leave them destitute. And again, many people that retired don't think they need life insurance or anything like that, but yet, how much do you want to have on the day you pass away?
Yeah. As much as possible, right? On that day.
It's only income tax free. I don't know why you'd want any of that myself.
It's just the rest of the days. Plus, Chris, I want the ability to spend with confidence with my wife in retirement, to be happy and enjoy our money. And the only way I feel like I'm going to do that with a high degree of confidence and enjoyment is to have some mechanism to help her refill the bucket in case I do pass away after a period of time where we have spent the money down. And I think that's overlooked a lot when we retire with the biggest lump sum that hopefully we've accumulated on day one of retirement, that, hey, we're going to be spending out of that bucket over the course of years. Again, ladies and gentlemen, Chris McIntire here is a resource. He is here for you, a genuine, caring advisor that has that fiduciary responsibility to put your best interest first. And that is moral, ethical kind of agenda for Chris, is making sure that his clients have the best plan in place possible. And he wants to do that for more of you across Northwestern Ohio. If you have not brought the plan together, if you've not had a review in quite some time, let's get that plan in place. Let's get into 2024 next year, avoiding these mistakes, doing the things that we should do. Chris McIntire can help you. 800-868-1194. That's 800-868-1194. 800-868-1194. And Chris, it is always a pleasure every time we get the opportunity to connect with you. Thank you for being here.
Hey, buddy, my pleasure, everybody. Yeah, be safe out there. Take good care. God bless.
Tune into Chris McIntire's full radio program and visit McIntireRetirementServices.com for many additional valuable resources, including other great episodes of Game Plan for Retirement with Chris McIntire. Be sure to subscribe.
The content of this radio show is provided for informational purposes only and is not a solicitation or recommendation of any investment strategy. You are encouraged to seek investment, tax, or legal advice from an independent professional advisor. Any investments and/or investment strategies mentioned involve risk, including the possible loss of principal. Advisory services offered through Brookstone Capital Management, a registered investment advisor.
Fiduciary duty extends solely to investment advisory advice and does not extend to other activities such as insurance or broker-dealer services. Advisory clients are charged a quarterly fee for assets under management, while insurance products pay a commission, which may result in a conflict of interest regarding compensation.